Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. So what do I say in this august audience with so many accomplished, distinguished people over here? I feel like an imposter. So this is the question often raised to me when I speak about either the Bharatiya civilization or Indian knowledge systems or the historiography. People challenge me, so what authority do you have? What adhikara do you have to talk about these kinds of things? Where are you coming from? Well, I say my journey has been so, right? I'm an engineer. So when I did my master's at IISc and went on to the US for my PhD, working in systems engineering, in theory rather, in electrical engineering. So one thing struck me. There's so many things we read about in modern PhD programs, right? So much of knowledge systems from different areas, especially if you do something like systems. And you wonder what was the contribution of our ancestors to this? Because any book you take obligatorily sources all knowledge to Babylonians, to Greece, and to places like this. And I was struck by this because I don't think this is right. There's got to be something more to this whole story. So I embarked on a different kind of journey where I hit the library at the university with a vengeance, reading every book possible on India to educate myself on what exactly is India all about, indiscriminately, whether it's a certain kind of Marxist view or a missionary view or an Indic person's view. I read indiscriminately, and as PhD people eventually learn, the more maturity you have, you'll see patterns. I started seeing patterns in the way India is addressed in this kind of literature. I got to know there are different viewpoints that come out there. Eventually, I asked the question, who wrote the history of India? Who were these people who wrote this history of India that led us on this path over here? And eventually learned historiography in India was controlled by 5 frameworks. And those frameworks starting with the colonial people, right? Till then, Indians had a beautiful idea of history, which was their own itihasas, their Puranas, their folklore, their dances, their talks. If you go to a temple epigraphy, you see what's all about. So many ways to understand our history, but the colonials who came with a Whig interpretation of history wanted to see everything through the moral prism of Christianity, right? So they started a certain way of looking at Indian history where Indians are backward, primitive, stagnant, superstitious society, whereas Western Europe is forward, progressive, technologically advanced, this kind of a society. I saw that framework. Eventually, they were not followed hand in hand with the Eurocentric ideas, right? When William Jones started seeing the commonality of Sanskrit, Latin, and Greek, to address that, a whole lot of ideas came about. Primarily, the field of linguistics was born over there, where a lot of ideas came about. It's a very Eurocentric kind of notions into where this homeland is, what is the relationship of Sanskrit to all of these languages, and so on. They were not followed, but again hand in hand with the missionaries. Wherever the colonial people went, missionaries are not far behind. Whether they were Catholics or Protestants or whoever, all shades of Christianity had their hand in India to convert Indians to Christianity. So they came about with a certain kind of scholarship. They were at the forefront of translating Sanskritam literature to European languages. People like H.H. Wilson and so on and so forth. Many of them with a certain bent of mind. So translations were done in a certain way. So the missionary perspective also came in. Since 1947, you might think, hey, we got control of our own destiny. After all, somebody said we made a tryst with destiny at midnight, right? All right, so what exactly was a tryst? Unfortunately, we inherited a socialism, a socialist way of looking at ourselves where the past is all primitive, and in order to progress and have a classless utopian society, we got to jettison the past, right? So everything about the past is primitive. So constitutional laws are brought about to stagnate, to kill off that old way so that we can enter into this new way of doing things. Well, we had born so much as civilizations, but in 72 we had a new shock when for political survival a certain party made a pact with the communists, and the Marxists also entered the education system. So the last 50 to 60 years, we've also been laboring under the Marxist way of looking at things, where everything can be viewed through the drishti of an oppressor oppressed, right? Everything is a history of conflicts. All of history is conflicts. So gone is the Vedanta, gone is the philosophy, gone are the accomplishments, gone is everything. All that matters is you fought against that person fought against this person. This morning I drove through the IIT IIT campus and said there's no caste discrimination. I wondered what exactly is caste. So anyway, so many other issues come into the fore when we look at some of the ideas thrust on us, and we carry this huge burden with us. So once again, why do we bother? Why do we bother? As an engineer, I ask, why do we even bother about these things? Well, this whole idea, out of all this morass of ideas being thrust on our historiography, out comes a fundamental constraints, as an engineer would put it, that you are a people who invaded or migrated from Central Asia around 1500 BC, bringing with you Sanskrit, this Vedic religion, and so on and so forth. And by the way, you are an uncivilized people because you only had an oral tradition. You did not have writing, because writing is the measure of civilization. You didn't have any civilization. And you'd killed off a superior civilization, Harappa that is. And you people were running around all of a Ganga plain and so on with your caste, cow, curry, and all that nonsense. And eventually, after you people made contact with the Greeks in a different part of India, eastern part of India, Magadha, made contact with the Greeks, 300 BC, suddenly we got the Brahmi script. Suddenly we became civilized overnight. Then they turn around and say, you are a young civilization. You have not had enough gestation time to build knowledge, whether it is in astronomy, whether it is in mathematics, medicine, and so on. So if you have evidence of an advanced knowledge, like say like Surya Siddhanta or Shushruta Samhita and Artha Shastra and things like this, they say you must have copied it from the earlier civilizations, the older ones, the Babylonians, the Greeks, and so on. So what you see is today we have a ridiculous narrative thrust over there. They tell us Brahmi came from Levant, Semitic scripts, it came from there. Sanskrit came from Central Asia. Astronomy came from the Babylonians. Mathematics, geometry came from the Greeks. And medicine from the Romans. And so on and so on. They even tell us Bhakti came to us through St. Thomas who landed in Muziris and things of this nature. So point is, every aspect of your ancestors' accomplishments has been taken away from you. Every single aspect is gone. Your ancestors were fantastic students. They learned at the feet of everybody who was teaching them, but they had nothing to offer to the world. This is the position I found myself in when I was investigating all of these things. Then eventually I found that we have a powerful way of looking at the world as engineers and scientists, right? We are all about evidence. We are all about understanding, all right, you made a claim. Where did that claim come from? What model did you use, right? You're going to capture some aspect of reality in a model with some relationships that take your input, output, and so on and so forth. I want to see what is that model you used. When you developed that model, what were your constraints? What were your assumptions? What was the data? What is the provenance of the data that you used? Are all data equally valid? Things of this nature. When you ask these questions, then you understand on what basis these worthies made claims. Then you understand there is no logic, there is no rationality. Everything stems upon the opinion of a heavyweight. Some heavyweight somewhere makes an observation that gets repeated ad nauseum until such point it becomes a factoid and a truth and a received wisdom for our academia even today in the social sciences, and it continues on. So this is not a drishti that a scientist engineer carries. We want to see what is your truth claim? How valid is your truth claim? So once I started using multidisciplinary evidence to try to understand this, and by the way, from a host of published papers that have got nothing to do with the Bharatiya civilization, but the minute you see the data, the claims, the models used there, you know that it's got a bearing on this claim that somebody else has made. We can make the connections. So this is what I've been doing for the last 15 years or so, talking about the papers published out there, in whether it's in Nature or Cell or Biology or you name it, the publication, it's got a bearing on the Bharatiya civilization. So eventually got to learn that there are so many IKS areas that we can talk about, whether it is astronomy. There is such a fantastic citation trail. Engineers are all about citation again. Scientists, where did you get this knowledge from? Somebody else, somebody else, somebody else. Where did citation trail go? At what point do you say some knowledge came from Babylonians? I want to see that particular period. I want to examine that particular claim. Where did it come from? eventually you see that this whole edifice of Greece, Rome, and other things is built on nothing more than Eurocentrism. Nothing more than that. There is no data, there is no evidence, there's no proof. I'm not the first person saying this. A lot of luminaries ahead of me have said this. And today we have so much at our disposal in social media, or whether it is in technologies, we can access information, knowledge, and we can make more progress than what we could do in the past on these kinds of things. So whether it is, like I said, astronomy, math, medicine, arts, all aspects of what you'd call civilization today, knowledge, your ancestors have got works on them. And if they've got works on them, and like I said, there's a citation trail. Somebody here said, Rajivji said that even in medicine, when you see, starting from Brahma, Brahma gave it to Indra, to Punarvashvatriya, to Charaka, and so on. There's a citation trail, right? That's what we see. And we are seeing that in every field you see a citation trail. Even if you take astronomy, they say that most of Indian astronomy is from Aryabhatta. Oh, by the way, anything you say about Aryabhatta, he copied from Ptolemy, who came ahead of him. It's as simple as that. And you needn't have evidence, or he copied from Hipparchus, one of the two claims. But then Aryabhatta himself is saying, I got from Brahma Siddhanta, which is much more earlier than him, and much more bigger citation trail is out there to show the growth of Indian astronomy over time. So investigation from our part leads to understanding these logical, rational relationships, where step by step there's an accumulation of knowledge as befits an ancient civilization. So that was my research all about, trying to figure out how ancient is what we call a Bharatiya civilization. Civilization is a loaded word, by the way. I won't go into defining what that is. But eventually, to understanding how ancient the civilization is, I saw that it's pretty deep. And the accumulation of knowledge that we have in various areas is indirectly a testament to that, saying how this knowledge is built up over time. And once again, people ask, why do you even bother about this archaic Indian knowledge systems, right? These are all things, relics of the past, and we live in modern times, for God's sake, contemporize. So, well, there is a lot of things we can talk about that also. For example, we need to understand the trajectory of knowledge. If you don't understand the trajectory of knowledge, then you are living under false claims. And as a civilization, we are all about the truth. We are all about dispel the avidya about your existence, right? And gain vidya. And to do that, you cannot claim to be pursuing vidya unless you're true to yourself and true to your drishti and understanding of the data you're seeing and whatever you're seeing. So the first step, to establish the trajectory of knowledge, we study this. That's one reason why we do IKS. One more, we see that we are in a world today with a whole lot of problems that we have caused by the trajectory of knowledge that has taken us over here. From what we call modernity till now, certain trajectories have been taken, and we have inherited several problems out there. We find that maybe there are solutions to this in IKS. Why? Because if you're an old civilization, you have encountered probably all the problems that humanity can face, and our thinkers of the past, rishis and scientists, have evolved and developed solutions to these old ways. Let me elaborate on just one point over here. For example, waterworks. Waterworks is something that is fundamental to every civilization. If you don't have water, how do you survive, right? I mean, today you can have an artificial city like Bangalore, where there's no river next to it, right? But then we pump water from Kaveri and other places through electricity, and we can survive. But in the old days, you had to be next to a river, otherwise you can't survive. Throughout India, we find that a lot of development has been done on water. Some examples, if you go to Gujarat, you see a lot of step wells, right? Very, very well adapted to the kind of environment it is. We have water scarcity, you got step wells to do that. Bangalore, that I talked about, had a system of reservoirs where water would percolate from one to the other because of gravity and such things, and ensured water security for a long time in Bangalore. And if you go to Hampi, Tungabhadra, how Tungabhadra was harnessed, you see things of this nature. When the British came, they started using what they call the modern ways of civil engineering, the modern ways of building canals and things of this nature that led to enormous siltification of many of the waterworks, enormous amount of work needed to be done to maintain the dams and other such things. Now there are people trying to see the value of the waterwork that India has evolved, maybe in Gujarat itself. Several step wells are being restored and things of this nature. So we're seeing new problems, old solutions still matter. I just give you one example out of many, many that can be done. So it's very relevant even today to study IKS, not dismiss it as an archaic discipline, for the purpose of understanding first the trajectory of knowledge, how there are solutions to be got over here, several solutions in fact, just like Rajivji talked about Ayurveda, something indisputable and always valid through time as long as humanity exists. Some things are absolutely necessary, so things of this nature. So in ending, I'll also talk about the biggest problem we have today, that is climate change. Climate change is there, whether you like it or not, on everybody, thanks to unbridled capitalist growth, where we believe by raping the resources of the earth, we make more and more money, right? There's no control, check, balance on this at all. So in today's world, I often say that Indian knowledge systems and the way we deal with ourselves and the world has got solutions for this. In today's world, the mantra would be, if I were to reduce my carbon footprint today, it is equivalent to reducing my karmic footprint. Think of it for a minute. Today we are in the Holocene extinction event, where enormous numbers of species are getting destroyed and becoming extinct thanks to human activity and so on. And we are contributing to it every day with every aspect of modern technological life we're participating in. We might not be able to stop it entirely, but if you reduce your carbon footprint, whether it is reduce, recycle, reuse, whatever have you, whether you do that, you are reducing your karmic footprint. So it fits in very well with the frameworks of dharma that have been evolved in the civilization over thousands and thousands of years. I'll stop there. Thank you very much.